that is necessary to peace, contentment, hope, and security. Now we see in the paper every day, while there are laws must be passed, as in the case of the Bill of Rights, but we notice that the Bill of Rights protects us in certain ways. It gives us privileges. It gives us the right to create a destiny. It gives the country a right to create a destiny. And it also gives to the family the right to build a solid structure in human society. It cuts through races and languages and all these barriers and makes it possible for each human being to be free. Free from the great error of all time, selfishness. Free from false gods, wealth, power, fame. These are the deities that most worship, and they are, as we know from St. Augustine, the false gods. In all of these different things, we find in Paul that he personifies the common faults of mankind and gives them a special flavor and coloring for our improvement. We know really, beyond all doubt, that a heathen is actually a person who does not believe in God, so-called. Factually, the word means a farmer, but we don't use it that way anymore. But a heathen to us is an unbeliever. But that isn't necessarily true. If by an unbeliever we mean someone that doesn't agree with us, it's totally false. A heathen is really one who has not established the integrity within the core of himself by which he can dominate his own insecurities. The Ten Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount are written in letters of fire and blood in the life circulation of every human being. It is the human being who becomes the treasurer of these things. He is the one who must become the custodian. He is the living temple made without hands. He is truth itself, but he doesn't know it. And in the course of trying to find it, he is deluded into many courses of procedure which are false and which should not be tolerated. So now we have a new coming. We're going to rewrite the Constitution. We're going to do all kinds of wonderful things. But are we really working at anything? Are we really trying to make contact with the best part of ourselves? Are we also putting ourselves under the censorship of enlightened mind? Are we using the mind to find out our own mistakes? Or are we just going to keep on trying to find mistakes in other people? Are we going to use the equipment that has been given to us to rectify ourselves, to discover in ourselves the secret of the three great worlds that exist, the divine world, the human world, and the material world? They are all in us. They're all part of us. They are all part of the great solar system that exists within our own flesh. We are a universe. And it's actually, we're known, we probably have more component parts than the planet Earth has. Each of us has more parts, more little cells, more lives inside. And over this whole economy is the power of will, the power of mind, and the power of love. While we go by will, we will become dictators. If we come by mind, we may become materialists. But if we come by love, then we shall understand and discover the magnificent amities of life, how they are all part of one eternal, beautiful purpose. And when we understand this, we have made a great achievement in the future. On the other side of the coin, as far as Paul is concerned, is this tremendous pressure within a man. And this pressure has alienated many people. I know that many people think of Paul, more or less, as very cruel or very crude. And he may have been all these things. But he also has within his writings, certainly, some of the most unusual and extraordinary statements to be found in the religious literature of the world. He is the only one, as far as we can understand, who has finally come to the conclusion that regardless of everything, there is only one God, one humanity, and one pattern of truth. We are all born into all three. and it is our privilege to use these to release ourselves from the desponds which have closed us in. We cannot solve the international problem until we discover the common life of humanity. As long as there are strangers, there will be enemies. As long as we cannot forgive our neighbor, we cannot forgive our world. As long as our hopes are not supported by our deeds, our hopes do not come true. And wherever we do it badly, we suffer. And then in our suffering, we raise our eyes and hands in anguish, asking God to relieve us of a pain or an ache or a problem that we ourselves have caused. The deity of Paul doesn't have to forgive anything, because it is inside of us and knows exactly what we've done every moment. It knows when we are sorry. It knows when we have made a proper penalty and paid it. It knows exactly the degree of our guilt and of our integrity. It knows when we are telling the truth, whether others do or not. Therefore, the Christ of Paul knocks at the door of our hearts, comes in and sits with us and breaks bread. And in that presence, we have the final custodian of the code, the keeper of the way of light. And this keeper has been implanted in us from the beginning of time, from the beginning of our existence. Even the little weeds have it. Everything has this infinite potential to grow and become more, to grow and fulfill. A man is one of the highest forms of life that has been integrated. Therefore, he has a very special duty and a very special responsibility. It is up to him to recognize that his humanity is a responsibility. His humanity brings him an obligation to the eternity of things. Humanity makes him one of those that cannot fail. And all failure is apparent only, but is punished by those insecurities which ultimately lead to the correction of the mistake. Life is forever correcting the mistakes of those who live it. And if the living is too poor or the corruption is too great, then we have the necessary penalties imposed upon us. But they come not from outside. They do come not from houses built of wood and stone. They come from the eternal life of God in everything. The blood coursing through the brain and through the body is the river of life. It is that which carries in it the intangible, mysterious, alchemical procedures by which all things are redeemed. Blood, as Mephisto says in Faust, is a most peculiar essence. It is different from anything else. The saving blood of Golgotha is a symbol of that which is meant, in which deity bleeds for the sake of humanity. That in some mysterious way we are all gradually growing up to redeem and release the mysterious Prometheus who has been bound to the rock because of our misdoings and because he tried to save us. So all of these things were undoubtedly known to Paul. He knew about these things. But take our founding fathers. One of the great points that most of them have emphasized will be found in the Acts of the Apostles, the Romans, and the Corinthians, these Bible books. The right of individuals to worship according to conscience, which is one of the religious freedoms that our founding fathers gave us. The right to go against infamy wherever it arises. The right to prevent the misuse of resources. The right to make payments and to refrain from unnecessary debt. The right not to have troops billeted in our homes. All these things are part of the rights that the Bill of Rights is supposed to give us. And this only way this Bill of Rights can be effective is because it is right. And if there's anything in it that is not right, it will have to be amended. But the purpose of it was to make right the basis of the American life way. It was to prevent the American life way from becoming stagnant from becoming set in patterns which were undesirable, and to prevent the gradual corruption of the democracy which was bought at so high a price. And yet today we are not watching the Bill of Rights. We are interested in our own rights, but not interested in our neighbor's rights. We are interested only in the advancement of ourselves. And Paul would have listed this as one of the greatest heresies with which the world has been afflicted since the beginning of time. There is no reason why humanity cannot cooperate. There is no reason why it is not possible for peace to be achieved. The reason it isn't achieved is because the Christ in us has not been allowed to express itself. It has been locked in by avarice. It has been locked in by the profit system, commercialization, and it has been locked in by materialism, which has refused to permit the soul to function in the average life of people. These things are the liberties which we have lost or cancelled. When we refuse to listen or deny the rights of our own souls, then we are committing a mistake, a serious one. We are disobeying the right of every person to be right. And this is the thing that the Bill of Rights was originally intended for. Many of those men who signed that, like Benjamin Franklin, were not theologically focused. They didn't go to church every day or anything of that nature. But most of them were patriots. And to be a patriot, a true patriot, you have to, first of all, be true to God. The divine power is the thing to which we must all give allegiance. We must all serve first the truth that is eternal. Now, as this century comes to a close, and it's coming pretty fast now, we are being faced more and more with the danger of not recognizing the importance of changing our ways and patterns. We have to begin to live the truth. We have to begin to follow not only Paul but all the apostles, and not only all the apostles but all the religions of the earth that have tried to show us. We will have to begin to do it right. We'll have to begin to allow faith, hope, and love to dominate our relationships with each other, our families, and our own inner selves. We cannot go on continually forgetting that which is real and nursing that which has no substance and be a happy, progressive people. It is interesting to see that now, particularly, there has been a great revival of interest in better things. 50 years ago, idealism was practically extinct in this country, held only in private by a few profound thinkers. Today, idealism is raving through the land. It is going everywhere, in every form, some good, some bad, some indifferent. But here, the definite effort to recognize the importance of beauty, the importance of friendship, the importance of honor, these things are coming home to us through the most natural possible means, the results and consequences of rejecting them. By rejection, we have brought ourselves to this state. By reclaiming them, we have to bring ourselves back again to the principles and to the ideals that Paul enunciated on the Hill of Mars. The Hill of Mars, incidentally, was the place where the Greeks gathered for gossip. It was a place where public opinion expressed itself. It was a kind of a spit and argue club that kept the Athenians more or less contented with life. They talked about everything, discussed with strangers what was happening in other lands, and on occasion held courts there to judge the virtues or vices of certain accused persons. But in this hill was the great listening post of the Greek states, and it was originally dedicated to the deity Mars. And it's interesting because Montmartre in France, where now a great cathedral stands, was also a hill of Mars. Mars was more than just a god of war. Mars was a god of do it, of courage, of conduct, and a determination to be right. And the Great War is not another Armageddon. The Great War is a struggle between the individual and his own pocketbook. It is the struggle between the person, his desires, his appetites, his commitments, and his determination to compete successfully with someone else. This is the great war. Competition is the strife that has to end. Little by little, if we don't cure it ourselves, we will so dissipate our natural resources and so destroy the nature which has been given to us that we can no longer subsist or exist without a reformation. We are still, however, in a period when a conscious, constructive reformation is possible. We are now at a time when we can do things better, we should do them better, and we should do what Paul also recommends. Regard not a house built by the hands of man as the temple of God, but to recognize the universe as the house of the eternal, and that in all ways and in every respect we owe homage to this. And it isn't here, not in some man-made building, that we must worship the eternal truths of life. If we can do this, and if we are able to succeed in this particular allotment, we will find ourselves in very much better condition and able to do many things that now seem impossible. Well, I think I'm going to have to stop now, but that's for this time. Next time we'll do better.